Hey, what are you doing? How are you? My name is Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. And thanks for checking me out on Patreon. Hey, if you got a little extra dough, throw it my way. Hey, you're loaded. You're rich. What the fuck are you worried about? Throw a little money my way. All the stuff that I do, the podcast, the videos, the reviews, it's all DIY. It's all free. So throw a little money my way. Patreon. Be a patron. People do it, supporting the arts, supporting cool people. So please do that. Patreon.com/NickD Show. Check out my podcasts. The Nick D Podcast every Tuesday and Friday at RadioMisfits.com. And That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, my podcast all about SNL. By the way, this week's episode features an interview with Season 39 cast member and stand-up comedian Brooks Wheelan. You should listen to this interview. You really should. If you're a fan of SNL, if you're not a fan of SNL, it is unbelievably honest, unbelievably hilarious, and unbelievably lively. One of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I've done a lot of interviews in the broadcasting world for over 37 years, and this is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Brooks Wheelan, ex-cast member for Saturday Night Live, on my podcast, That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years. Check out RadioMisfits.com. Episode 4 of That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years with Brooks Wheelan. Fucking check it out. Seriously. Listen to that interview. Anyway, hi. I review movies on WLS, AM 890, The Big 89, on the Steve Cochran Show, and on my podcast, the Nick D Podcast, and I've been reviewing movies professionally for over 37 years, and so, I talk about movies a lot. So, one of the worst filmmakers in the history of movies is releasing a new movie that comes out Friday, and that would be the day after tomorrow. And the filmmaker's name is M. Night Shaymalan. He is one of the worst filmmakers in the history of cinema. I'm prone to hyperbole, but this isn't hyperbole. It's fact. The man has not made a movie that isn't a piece of shit. None of his movies are good. The only one that is watchable is Split, and that is only because of James McAvoy. If anybody else had played that part, it would have again been as bad as all the other steaming piles of shit that M. Night Shaymalan has released upon the innocent public. But McAvoy is fucking great in that movie. It's not a very good movie. It's easily the best movie that M. Night Shaymalan has ever made. It's not even close. Not even close. And it's got a really good cast because it's got McAvoy in the lead, and it's got Anya Taylor-Joy, who is amazing. And it's really a fun movie to watch, and he's great in it. And then, of course, Shyamalan ruins it at the end with the final scene because he makes it a sequel to one of the worst movies ever, Unbreakable. And then he fucks it up even more because his next movie was a sequel to Split called Glass, where he brings in the two asshole characters from Unbreakable and fucks up everything that James McAvoy did. And I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, this video is basically dedicated to the fact that M. Night Shaymalan has never made a good movie. And if you think he's made a good movie, you're fucking wrong. He's tricked you into somehow thinking that he's made a good movie. The motherfucker has never made a movie that does not suck. And like I said, the only one he's made that isn't a piece of shit is Split, and that's only because of James McAvoy. He single-handedly makes that movie watchable and decent until, of course, Shyamalan fucks it all up by making it part of the Unbreakable Split Glass universe. Fuck off. Anyway, M. Night Shyamalan, a ding-dong, as I like to call him, but M. Night Shyamalan is a terrible filmmaker. He's a terrible writer. He's a terrible director. He's a terrible producer. He produces shitty TV shows, and he makes over and over and over and over again, he makes some of the worst movies that have ever been released to the innocent public of the world. He is a fucking terrible filmmaker. A hack. An absolute hack. And, sorry, he's never made a good movie. And you're like, oh no, but he made The Sixth Sense and he made Signs and they suck. All of his fucking movies suck. He's a useless, worthless writer-director who has made some of the worst movies that I've ever sat through in my life. And they never get better. Split was the only... I was shocked at how much I enjoyed Split until, of course, the ending. And the only reason I enjoyed Split is because Anya Taylor-Joy is in it, and I love her. And James McAvoy is phenomenal. He's phenomenal in everything, and he kicked ass in that movie. So, his latest movie, Shamalama-Dong-Dong-Ding-Dong, his latest movie is called Knock at the Cabin. and it's based on a book called The Cabin at the End of the World, Knock at the Cabin at the End of the World, or some shit. But I've never read the book. I don't know the book. All I know is that he definitely has Shyamalan'd it. And I don't know if the book, because the movie is a Shyamalama Ding Dong movie, and the script is very M. Night Shyamalan horse shit. So maybe this book is a lot like M. Night Shyamalan, and he just said, oh, I've got a kindred spirit in the dickhead who wrote this book, because it's also stupid and shitty like my stuff. So very quickly, Dave Bautista, the professional wrestler, who, as an actor, he's a real good professional wrestler. And fuck him, okay, except for Dune. But anyway, Dave Bautista and 3 other people show up at this cabin. And Nikki Amuka Bird, Rupert Grint, yeah, Ron Weasley is in this, and Abby Quinn. These 4 people show up at this cabin, which this couple, played by Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge. Jonathan Groff, by the way, who was Agent Smith in the last Matrix movie, Resurrections, is in this. Anyway, they play a couple, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge, and they have an adopted daughter, played by Kristen Cue, who is a young girl who, at the beginning of the movie, is outside this cabin where her 2 fathers are vacationing with her, and she's capturing grasshoppers. And all of a sudden, Dave Bautista walks up out of the woods and starts to talk to her and say, hey, I want to be your friend. I'm really sorry, but some scary stuff is going to happen. My friends and I here have to come into your cabin, and you and your parents are going to have to make a very, very important decision in order to save the entire world. So basically, the 2 dads and the little girl are in the house. They knock on the door. Dave Bautista and the other 3 jagoffs knock on the door. They've got weird tools like sickles and axes and hammers and shit. And Dave Bautista's dressed very like a teacher. He is a teacher. You find out he's a teacher. He's got glasses and a nice shirt and everything. And Rupert Grint, who normally plays Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter movies, he's got a beard. He's all gruffy and trying really, really hard to not be Ron Weasley. And the other 2 are weird women. And they show up, they break into the cabin, and they tie up the 2 guys, the 2 parents, and the little girl, and they tell them that, okay, they have to sacrifice one of them. They have to make a sacrifice. One of these people is going to have to kill another one to save the world from the apocalypse. The end of the world is going to happen. And if they do not kill, like if one of the fathers kills the other father, one of these 3 people has to kill another one in order for the end of the world to stop. And these 4 people who show up at the house, led by Dave Bautista, they are there to make sure that one of these 3 people is killed so that the end of the world doesn't happen and all these horrible plagues and terrible disasters do not happen to the earth. So, of course, the 2 fathers and the little girl are scared and they're confused and they refuse. Of course, they're not going to kill anybody. So one by one, these 4 people kill themselves, are killed and sacrificed. And a plague is released upon the world. Okay? And then they turn because they're stuck in this cabin. They've kidnapped these 2 guys and the daughter. And to prove to them that something horrible is happening, they turn on the TV after one of these people is murdered. One of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, basically. One of them is murdered. They turn the TV on to show that there's like hurricanes and typhoons and planes are falling out of the sky. And they show them, because of CNN and the news, all this horrible stuff is happening in the world because these 2 guys and their daughter will not choose to kill one of each of them. To save the entire world, millions and billions of people are going to die, and the world is going to end, and all these plagues and diseases and horrible things and planes falling, all this guy and all this shit. It's happening because they will not choose to kill one another. And Dave Bautista and these other 3 jagoffs are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse who have, chosen this family to make this sacrifice. They have to make a sacrifice to save the world. So it's either one of them dies or billions of people die and the world ends. And that's what the movie's about. Are these 4 people nuts? Have they showed up just to fuck with and then it becomes, is it because they're a gay couple? Is it because they have this daughter and they lead a non-normal life And is this sort of like the world coming down on them for being a gay couple? And you get flashbacks in the movie about their relationship, about how they've dealt with very legitimate things in the real world, about how gay couples have to deal with certain things, and how two men, adopting a daughter is sometimes looked down upon, and they got beaten up in a bar. So all of these flashbacks showing the difficulties that this gay couple has had to have are shown to us as we're watching this, and they relive it as these four horsemen of the apocalypse have them tied up and captured in their cabin, and they have to rethink their entire life to see if they should sacrifice one another to save the world, even though the world has been unbelievably unfair and cruel to them. And that's what the movie's about. And in M. Night Shyamalan fashion, it is heavy-handed. It is as poorly made as you can possibly imagine. There's not one moment of suspense or scares in it. Loaded with bad close-ups to emphasize the fact that this is a very important, intense movie. So let's move the camera as close as possible. His editing is rhythmless. The composition of shots is like a 6-year-old with an 8mm camera attempting to make a home movie with his Legos. That's about the level of talent and technical expertise that this moron has. And don't even get me started on how dumb and obvious and ridiculous his scripts are. Whatever sort of message he has is, one, it is the message that seems to be given by a 6-year-old who has just learned a couple of new words in the dictionary. And M. Night Shyamalan is that 6-year-old who's like, oh, new word. I will now hammer it into the ground with a stupid, simple, predictable, moronic message that an after-school special would be more apt at delivering more effectively than this fucking moron. He's got no skill as a suspense builder, none at all. There's nothing scary about this movie. There's nothing intense about it. The performances are embarrassing. Like I said, Dave Bautista, as an actor, he's a real good professional wrestler. The guys who play the couple are terrible in this movie. Embarrassing in the last, 10 minutes of this movie. Some of the most embarrassing, forced, intense acting I've ever seen. The little girl is fucking annoying. Ron Weasley is just not, Rupert Grint is desperately trying to be as gruff and angry and evil and dirty as possible, trying so hard to make people forget that he's Ron Weasley. And the other two women are, because I don't know their work really. I've never really seen it. One of the women is in Old, which is another piece of shit that Shyamalama Ding Dong made. But you can't tell because they're so poorly written. And the whole, we are they reveal near the end that they are the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which 30 seconds into the movie when 4 people show up at a house talking about the end of the world, and they are bringing the end of the world. Is this really a surprise? Just like 95% of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. Really? We're surprised by what happens? You're surprised by what Shyamalan does? Seriously? Oh my God, it's the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And then then he goes on to explain it for 5 minutes, like what each horseman represents, and Dave Bautista and the other 3 actors, what they represent. It goes that far into treating the audience like they're morons. And that's what M. Night Shyamalan does. So basically, Knock at the Cabin, I've not read the book. It is a terrible movie. We are early into the year. It's February 1st right now. February 1st. And I already have a candidate for the worst fucking movie I've seen all year. And, also Fear, which is another movie I saw. I actually walked out on. But this one, of the big new releases, without question, will be on the top 10 worst movies of 2023, as most of M. Night Shyamalan's movies are. And I thought I would just run down the list very quickly. So Night at the Cabin, or Knock at the Cabin, it's a piece of shit. It is the latest, unscary, uninteresting, ham-fisted, simplistic, one-dimensional, message-banging, and the message is really simplistic, banging movie with terrible acting and terrible direction, awful script. It is the usual M. Night Shyamalan a display of horrible storytelling and terrible filmmaking. He fucking sucks. And Knock at the Cabin is yet another example of M. Night Shyamalan being a piece of shit. And here's the deal. I'm going to go through his movies really quickly. I've not seen Praying with Anger, which is the first movie he ever directed that he's in. Apparently I've not seen it, so I have no judgment on that one. But apparently it's completely different than any other stuff he's done. And it's a personal movie about his life. as an Indian American and his life here in America as a young man. I've not seen it. But the first movie that he made that made any kind of stir at all is a movie called Wide Awake, and it's terrible, but terrible for different reasons. This was before M. Night Shaymalan became like the self-proclaimed master of suspense, the man that does twists and turns. He's the Hitchcock of the late 90s and aughts. He became suspense man. He'll twist your mind over. He will surprise you. Well, Wide Awake was the first movie that I saw that he directed, and it's a wacky sort of comedy drama about a 10-year-old kid whose grandfather dies, and he goes on a journey to discover who his grandfather was and to make sure that he comes to peace with himself. Rosie O'Donnell was in it, and Dennis Leary was in it, and it had a cast, but it was a comedy about a 10-year-old kid coming to terms with his grandfather's death. So it sucked in different ways than the other M. Night Shyamalan movies sucked. So before he became the self-proclaimed master of twisty surprise suspense, he made a really shitty comedy drama about a 10-year-old kid whose grandfather died. So he can be shitty in other ways. Not just in bad surprise suspense movies that aren't scary or thrilling or entertaining, but he can also make really shitty comedy dramas about kids with Rosie O'Donnell. He's capable of sucking that up too. Then next, of course, was The Sixth Sense. Piece of shit. Not good. Basic, dumb shit that's been done in 9,000 other movies. Haley Joel Osment, as we realized as time went on, a one-note performer. Bruce Willis sleepwalking through it. The whole, oh my God, Bruce Willis is dead thing. That's the only thing that movie had going for it. I didn't see it coming. I will say that. I didn't see it coming, but I didn't care. And when it happened, I went, oh, he's dead. Who gives a fuck, because this movie's a piece of shit. So yes, I did not see the ending coming to The Sixth Sense. I know a lot of people who did. My friend and fellow film critic Eric Childress saw it coming 15 minutes in the movie. He was like, yeah, Bruce Willis is dead. He's a dead guy. And so yes, I did not see it coming. But when it was revealed, I didn't go, oh my God, he's dead. I went, oh, yeah, he's dead. Good. When is this fucking piece of shit gonna end? When can I leave the oh, he's dead. That's really, fantastic. Oh, really, I didn't see it coming, but I don't care, because I didn't care about anything that was happening, because it wasn't scary, it wasn't original, it wasn't suspenseful, and kids with psychic powers and dead people popping up have been done 8,000 times before and 9,000 times. But I could name 15 movies that dealt with the same subject matter that Sixth Sense did that were 9,000 times better. Even bad movies that were 9,000 times better than The Sixth Sense. So he does a little twist ending and suddenly people are like, oh my God, this guy's a genius. Oh my God, Bruce Willis was dead. Oh my God, he's been dead the whole time. He's a genius, he's a genius. And he started to take that shit real seriously. M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong started to take that shit real seriously and became pompous asshole jagoff who, of course, was inserting himself into movies, which he still does. He has his little M. Night Shyamalan cameos when we're supposed to go, because anytime he can compare himself to Hitchcock, he will, because obviously Hitchcock put himself in small cameos in all of his movies. And so M. Night Shyamalan, who professes to, he takes himself as, the new Hitchcock, decides, I'm going to do what Hitchcock does and make suspense movies and twisty stuff and surprise people. Oh my God, he killed Janet Leigh in the first 20 minutes of Psycho. I'm going to base my entire career on trying to repeat that. And I'll be like Hitchcock too by putting myself in movies. He's in Knock at the Cabin. He plays a guy on an infomercial who is frying chicken. And we're supposed to go, oh look, it's M. Night Shyamalan making his Hitchcock cameo, and I just did this. So anyway, so after The Sixth Sense, he became the talk of the town. The movie got nominated for Best Picture, and he got nominated for Best Director, and right out of the gate, guy's only made 2 movies, and he is now the king of suspense. He's the new Hitchcock, and most of this king of suspense, biggest twisty, genius Hitchcock guy, that was mostly said by him. He was the motherfucker who believed it the most. So his next movie was Unbreakable, which I know a lot of people who like this movie. Unbreakable's a piece of shit. And I think most people who like it are comic book people. And maybe I would have liked it more had I cared about comic books, but I didn't read comic books. I don't give a fuck about comic books. I could not care less about comic books. As a movie, Unbreakable is a stupid piece of shit. It's garbage. It's stupid. And the ending, twisty ending, is ridiculous. And I also love the fact that, like, when Bruce Willis gets this power to, when he gets touched by someone, he can see into the future and stop horrible things from happening. But he chooses, like, what should be stopped and what isn't. And I guess, like, date rape's that's not bad. Like, that shouldn't be. Now, I'll never forget that. Like, there's like if I remember correctly, someone touches him and it's like, he sees a future, like, fraternity, like, date rape situation, horrible situation. But he doesn't choose that. He chooses something else. Anyway, so he puts on he becomes a superhero because he's got superpowers. Unbelievably awful movie. Again, that whole pretentious visual style that M. Night Shaymalan has. Everything is very staid and steady and lots of close-ups and, I'm going to show a glass of orange juice for 10 minutes and it's going to be a spooky glass of orange. Get the fuck out of here. Unbreakable. Shit. Okay? Shit. Followed by Signs. Unbelievably stupid movie where basically, like, basically the message is hit an alien with a baseball bat and throw water on him. And these aliens are supposed to be really clever, but they're allergic to water. Water kills them. And yet, if these aliens are supposed to be smart, they pick a fucking planet that's 75% water to invade. Mel Gibson, Jagoff. Joaquin Phoenix, bigger Jagoff. Awful movie. And the whole message of the movie is my wife died, but she told me to swing away. So he hits an alien with a baseball bat. One of the stupidest fucking movies ever made. Fuck your little twist. It doesn't work. It's stupid. Signs. Bullshit. After Signs, The Village. This is when he started to take his little twists way too far. And even the idiots who think he's a good filmmaker, even the morons who think M. Night Shyamalan's a good filmmaker, were kind of pissed by this one because it's about a village that's supposed to be taking place in the Middle Ages, and then you find out that they're not. They're like cosplaying in the middle of modern times. William Hurt is in The Village, and that's when like everybody, even the fans of M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, the talentless sack of shit that he is, even fans of his were like, okay, what the fuck? They're cosplaying. This did not take place in medieval times. There's actually a highway 4 feet away. Okay, fuck off. The Village, Lady in the Water, one of the most embarrassing movies ever made. Paul Giamatti, the check cleared. That was his follow-up to Sideways. And then that's when we got introduced to Bryce Dallas Howard, who at that time I was just like, oh good, Ron Howard's daughter got a job and she sucks. Lady in the Water, embarrassing. And then we'll just go on because this is when it started to go downhill. Even for the fans of this moron, this talentless sack of shit, even fans of his started to go, huh? The Happening, one of the worst movies ever made, where trees came to life and nature fought back. One of the worst performances in the history of cinema by Mark Wahlberg. A terrible movie. One of the worst movies ever made. The Happening. The Last Airbender, where he took Avatar: The Last Airbender for fans and completely ruined it. After Earth. Hey, you know how to make an M. Night Shyamalan movie worse? Put fucking Will fucking Smith in it. The most annoying, non-talented sack of garbage to ever be in movies. Put him in. How do you make an M. Night Shyamalan movie worse? Put Will Smith in it. Oh! And Will Smith, if that's not bad enough, put his fucking son in it. If you really want to torture human beings, have an M. Night Shyamalan movie. That's torture. Oh, how to make it even more torturous? Put Will Smith in it. He's a piece of shit. Oh, wait a minute. How to make it even more torturous? Put his dumbass son in it. After Earth, he did The Visit, which was like this return to form for him, where old people were weird and sticking kids, and it was Hansel and Gretel. That's his whole thing, is like taking old school, like sort of myths and stories and putting the M. Night Shyamalan twist on them. Fuck off. He directed that. He produced a bunch of shit too, like movies like Devil, From the Mind of M. Night Shyamalan, all this other shit. But even at this time, he was taking a little bit of a beating. And then after The Visit, there was Split. And that's the only movie that I find watchable. And again, at the beginning of this video, I told you why. It was a very entertaining movie, despite the fact that it was terribly directed and the script was dumb. But you got Anya Taylor-Joy, and you have a magnificent performance by James McAvoy. And that movie was really solid and very entertaining because of him, but then he fucks it up at the end because he makes it a sequel to Unbreakable. He brings in his little Bruce Willis Jagoff character from Unbreakable. And I remember watching the final scene of the movie, and I was like, wait a minute. There's the big twist at the end. There's your M. Night Shyamalan twist. Ruin the only decent movie you've made by making it a part of a piece of shit that you made before. And then the sequel to it, Glass, is unwatchable and a complete waste of James McAvoy's time in that movie and a complete waste of all the good work that he did in Split. So take a performance by a really good actor and ruin it by making a terrible sequel to end your little trilogy of Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. You fucking suck, Shamalama Ding Dong. And then his last one was Old, where like the kids go off, they're on a beach, and this beach makes you age, blah, 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 and it's a whole movie about like growing old and what do we do about death and blah, blah, blah. And it was something that he was exploring all the way back to Wide Awake and in some of his other movies, including The Sixth Sense and some of his other movies, like The Village and things like that. So it's the same kind of themes that he's been covering over and over again. He covers the same thing in Knock at the Cabin. He repeats himself constantly. He rips off other better filmmakers. He thinks he's Hitchcock. He thinks his twist endings are clever. And there was that stretch of time when even his fans were like, fuck this guy. I've never been a fan. I'm proud and happy to shout from the fucking mountaintops that I never drank the M. Night Shyamalan Kool-Aid. Ever. From The Sixth Sense on, I was in on the fact that this guy's a fucking hack. That he is a terrible filmmaker. And he continually proves it. Movie after movie after movie after movie with terrible technique, awful direction, ridiculously stupid scripts. The man sucks. He's an egotistical, unbelievably horrific producer, director, writer who thinks he's Hitchcock, who thinks he's the captain of suspense and the master of the twist, when in fact he's a fucking one-dimensional, 2-bit hack who couldn't direct Traffic. He's a horrible filmmaker. And his latest movie, Knock at the Cabin, is yet another, just another example of what a terrible director M. Night Shyamalan is. And it's an awful movie, the first truly awful major release of 2023. So, M. Night Shyamalan, you never fooled me, motherfucker. I saw right behind your bullshit from The Sixth Sense on. You're a terrible filmmaker. And I don't care how many cameos you make in your little movies, and I don't care how many twists you do and how many long, steady shots that you have, close-ups of people. You will never be the master of suspense. You will never be more than a one-dimensional, singular fucking filmmaking hack who has never, ever, ever made a movie that doesn't suck. And the latest movie, Knock at the Cabin, sucks!